When police arrived at Lauren Smithfield's apartment that morning, her body was already cold. Just hours earlier, she had been on a first date with a man she met on Bumble. They drank tequila, watched a movie, and according to him, everything was normal. But when Lauren didn't wake up the next morning, he was the only person there. And what police discovered inside that apartment would soon turn this normal date into a deeply disturbing mystery. Lauren Smithfields was only 23 years old. She lived in Bridgeport, Connecticut, and to the people who knew her, Lauren was the kind of person who lit up every room she walked into. She loved fashion, taking selfies, and spending time with friends. On social media, her life looked bright and full of energy. Like many people her age, Lauren also used dating apps. And on December 11th, 2021, she matched with someone on Bumble. His name was Matthew LaFountain. At first, it seemed like a completely normal match. The two began messaging through the app, talking about everyday things, music, life, and what they liked to do for fun. Soon, they decided to meet in person. Matthew came over to Lauren's apartment that evening. According to him, the night was relaxed. They ordered food, watched a movie, and drank tequila together. Nothing about that night seemed unusual. At least, that's what he would later tell police. Because by the next morning, Lauren Smithfields would be dead, and the man who had spent the night with her was the last person to see her alive. That evening, Matthew LaFountain arrived at Lauren's apartment for their first date. According to his statement, everything felt casual and relaxed. The two talked, laughed, and tried to get to know each other better. At some point, they ordered food and started drinking tequila together. Later that night, they sat on the couch watching a movie. To anyone looking from the outside, it might have seemed like a completely normal first date. Two strangers meeting for the first time, spending the night talking and relaxing. But as the night went on, things began to get blurry. Matthew later told investigators that Lauren had become very intoxicated. He claimed she started feeling sick and went to the bathroom several times during the night. Still, he said nothing seemed serious. Eventually, Lauren went to lie down in her bed. Matthew told police that he stayed in the apartment, sitting in the living room for a while, before eventually falling asleep. And for hours, nothing seemed out of the ordinary. But sometime during that night, something inside that apartment changed. Because by morning, Lauren Smithfields would never wake up again. And the only person who knew what truly happened inside that apartment was the man who had spent the night with her. The next morning, December 12th, 2021, the apartment was quiet. Matthew LaFountain later told investigators that when he woke up, Lauren was still lying in her bed. At first, he assumed she was simply asleep after the night of drinking, but something didn't feel right. He said Lauren wasn't moving. He tried to wake her up, but she didn't respond. That's when Matthew called 911. When police and emergency responders arrived at the apartment, they quickly realized the situation was far more serious than it first appeared. Lauren Smithfields was unresponsive. Paramedics attempted to assess her condition, but it was already too late. The 23-year-old was pronounced dead. Inside the apartment, investigators began documenting the scene. There were signs that the two had been drinking the night before. Bottles of alcohol were visible. There were also medications inside the apartment. But strangely, there were no immediate signs of violence, at least none that were obvious. Matthew, the man who had spent the night with Lauren, was still inside the apartment when police arrived. He explained to officers that the two had met on Bumble and that this had been their first time meeting in person. According to him, the night had been completely normal. They drank together, watched a movie, and eventually Lauren went to bed because she wasn't feeling well. He claimed that he had simply fallen asleep on the couch. To the responding officers, Matthew appeared calm as he told his story. But as the hours passed, more questions began to surface, because Lauren's family would later learn something deeply disturbing. Police had never immediately notified them that their daughter had died. In fact, they would only discover the truth later, when a note was left on Lauren's apartment door, and that was just the beginning of the controversy surrounding this case. In the days that followed Lauren Smith Fields' death, her family began searching for answers, but instead of clarity, what they found only raised more questions. Lauren's parents later revealed that they were never immediately contacted by police about their daughter's death. Instead, they learned something was wrong when a note appeared on the door of Lauren's apartment. By the time they understood what had happened, Lauren was already gone. For her family, this was devastating. But what disturbed them even more was how the investigation seemed to unfold. Matthew LaFountain, the man who had been with Lauren the night she died, was not immediately treated as a suspect. According to reports, police allowed him to leave the apartment shortly after officers arrived. He was never taken into custody that day. To Lauren's family, that decision made no sense. He had been the last person to see her alive. Yet investigators did not search his home right away. They did not seize his phone immediately, and they did not publicly name him in the early stages of the investigation. As weeks passed, frustration inside Lauren's family continued to grow. They began speaking out publicly, demanding answers about how the case had been handled. Soon, the story began attracting national attention. Many people began asking the same question Lauren's family had been asking from the very beginning. Why did it feel like the investigation into Lauren Smith Fields' death had moved so slowly? And more importantly, what had actually happened inside that apartment the night Lauren died? As investigators continued examining Lauren Smith Fields' death, the medical examiner eventually released the official autopsy results. According to the report, Lauren had died from a combination of substances in her system, including alcohol, prescription medication, and fentanyl. The ruling was classified as an accidental overdose, but for Lauren's family, that explanation didn't bring the closure they were hoping for. They still had many questions about what exactly had happened inside the apartment that night, and whether the investigation had been handled properly from the beginning. The case quickly gained national attention, with many people demanding greater accountability and transparency in how the investigation was conducted. Lauren Smith Fields was only 23 years old, and for those who loved her, the circumstances surrounding her death would always leave a lingering sense of mystery. If you enjoy true crime stories that explore the dark and complicated cases behind real headlines, make sure to subscribe to my channel, The Bone Library, because here we uncover the stories that history tried to forget.